Welcome to the Venture Xperience podcast, featuring interviews with up-and-coming entrepreneurs and business leaders. Join host Brian Weatherford as we peel behind the curtain into the motivations, tools, and strategies used by successful business leaders.
Welcome to the Venture Xperience podcast. My name is Brian Weatherford. I am your host. I'm the host, but you can't have a host without a guest. We have a great guest today. We have an attorney right here on the show with us today. I have a lot of questions for her. Let's get to it. First of all, Stacy D. Henderson, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
All right. I'm dying to ask you this because I have a lot of attorney friends. Obviously, you're an attorney now. You've been an attorney for a little while. You've been very successful. Little Stacy back in the day. Did you know back then you wanted to be an attorney?
I did. This is where education is so profound. In the fourth grade, our elementary at this Woodway Elementary School in Fort Worth, Texas, they had pen pals. So we had pen pals that were attorneys. And I think it was Miss Norland was my teacher. She had a mock trial. And I was in there with Jafar and Aladdin. It was my first jury trial. I think it was a bench trial, but it was fourth grade. I had on my church suit and my pantyhose and my shoes, and I won it. I represented Aladdin, and I knew that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
That other attorney never had a chance, did they, when you come strutting in?
Never. With my church stockings on and my Sunday suit, never.
So back then, those seeds were planted.
They were.
Then throughout, you had that proverbial goal out there to get to. You went to law school, but even then, you're in law school, which is not, if it was easy, we'd all be lawyers. I know it's not. But you still have to decide which direction to go because there's so many types of law to practice. What do you practice now, and why did you go the direction you did?
Well, right now I do family law, estate planning, and probate, including guardianships, and I do some civil. And the reason I practice those laws, well, there are different reasons. Mm-hmm. One, with the guardianships and working with people with disabilities, my brother actually is deaf. So as a high school student, I saw my brother discriminated with, or because he's a person that's deaf. And so that sparked me wanting to help families that had, persons with disabilities. And I'm actually fluent in American Sign Language. And part of my background, I actually worked with disability rights in Arkansas. So now part of my firm is I understand what family members are coming with when they have that issue of my child has this disability forever, or how do I help them? How do I navigate the legal system? So that's where that area came from. Family law, when the recession happened back in 2008, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? And I had some attorney mentors who were like, have you ever tried family law? I don't want to do that. I don't want to divorce people. And they're like, you're not going to divorce them. They're going to divorce themselves. And you might as well be there to help them. Well, I really enjoy working with families and navigating that system with them and comforting them through a very stressful part of their life. And then my favorite part of family law is adoption. So I have had an adoption. I adopted my child. And so I love that area. It's probably my most favorite area of law. So,
I would have to think, for any of us, and take this with the due respect I meant it to be, you're in one of those professions to where we hope we never need you, but by golly, we're sure glad you're there if we do. Is that fair enough?
That's exactly. It's kind of like having insurance on a car. You never want to get in a car wreck, but if you do, you have that insurance, you're happy. Insurance.
Okay, I want to take a step further though. If I was going through the process of adoption, which I can't imagine what all that entails, the relatability factor for you as an attorney is off the charts because you've been there. You've been me. If yes. I want to go, you've already done it.
Yes.
And that would mean the world to me, honestly. If I had someone in my family who was deaf or had any sort of issues, it would be nice. The relatability factor would have to be huge. Do you find that people immediately say, wow, you really do get it?
Well, yes. Lawyers are always looked at as real people. Plenty of lawyer jokes out there. But as being a real person and having family dynamics, and even my parents were through a divorce when I was younger. So I understand what it's like to be a child. I understand how the family dynamics work. And so I am able to work with my clients to let them know the law is something that you need to navigate, but I'm also a human and they understand that you have emotions and feelings, but I need to know the law so I can help you.
Well, let's walk through, and again, we don't have all day, but I just want to get just some high level stuff here. For example, walk me through the adoption process. My wife and I today, we meet with you in your office here at Venture X, and we say, hey, we're looking to adopt a child. Can you help?
So we would want to find out if you want to go through local, domestic, meaning if you want to adopt in the United States, or if you want to go out the country. So if you want to adopt locally, you can do it through an adoption agency or even through Child Protective Services. I have clients where there may be something going on with their father foster care parents, or they may have a relative that's going through to the Child Protective Services. And then I know that system as well, as I used to work for Department of Family Protective Services. So I work for the government. And so I understand if you have to go through the government process domestically and internationally. So my first question would be, where do we want to go? Do we want to stay local, or do we want to go out the country? And if we do international adoption, I also work with immigration attorneys that assist us with that as well.
Okay. So it's like any good business person, which you are a business person.
Yes.
So many times it's better to listen than it is to talk. You get that. I mean, you don't want to immediately start telling them everything, because you know everything and they don't need to know everything. They need to know what pertains to them. So you need to ask questions first and then okay, I like that. Let's go to the next thing. You mentioned the fact, you briefly touched on this, but maybe, well, it's a given. Not all of us are going to ever adopt. All right.
Yes.
But all of us need a will.
Absolutely.
And a power of attorney and
Absolutely.
other things. Talk to me about that and why that's so important and why people are so stubborn and don't do it.
Well, a lot of times people don't do it until something bad happens. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, I started to get phone calls because people felt so much more vulnerable. So a will is, if you don't tell us what your will is for your family, the government already has it. State of Texas is going to tell everyone what's going on. And what happens is that people cannot grieve properly because there are not things. And unfortunately, people may have to fight or go to get all those different things. So what you do is you do a will. You tell me what you want. And I've actually had people who have created their wills and they actually passed away. And the family hired me to read the will and present it to the family. And the person was able to be, let's say, the bad guy. If they allotted these different things, so that was better than a judge telling you or someone else deciding it. So, and then power of attorneys. I mean, power of attorneys don't always have to happen when you are sick, but let's say you were on a cruise, you couldn't come back. Let's say you were out the country and you need your affairs to be taken care of. For myself, I had my tonsils removed one time, and guess what? I couldn't talk. So as a lawyer not being able to speak, I mean, that was my death day, right? And so I had a power of attorney in place so that if I need someone to communicate on my behalf. So those different things are necessary. And we do this for every other part of our life, except some things are government mandated. You can't drive a car in Texas without insurance because they know something can happen. Unfortunately, we're all going to pass away. So we might as well already plan for it.
Well, and the bigger thing too, one of the saddest things, and I have personal knowledge of this through friends and family and whatnot, is that you need to establish a directive to physicians before you're incapable and you can't do it yourself, because you don't want to put your family and loved ones in the position of having to guess what it is you want. You work with that too, correct? I
do, and I actually create a will packet where I do your will, your power of attorney, your directive physicians, and then your HIPAA. Because guess what? They're not going to reveal things to you if you're not on a piece of paper. The directive physicians is so important, and I've done mine. I've updated throughout the years because if I'm in a vulnerable position, do I want to stay on the machines or do I want to be removed? I've actually had families fighting in the hospital because of it. It's a very painful experience for your family. And yes, no one wants to think about, should I pull the plug or not pull the plug? But if that document says it, then no one is going to fight about it. They know it was your wishes, and they don't have to have that guilt of, what, Mom, I don't want to do this. And it's a very painful situation that could be resolved just with thoughtfulness of let my family grieve or be able to move on without making these very difficult decisions.
Is it a good part of the process to where, let's say I'm going through that, I come to you and I get everything all set up, then I call in my family members and say, look, I've got this set up. This is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. And then it's all legal. It's all in documents, but I've had the chance to express to my family why I did what I did. And then everybody's fine.
It's actually brilliant because usually if you had this conversation, there's nothing bad going on. And then people are very calm. My family, I did this about 10 years ago. And we all sat in the living room. We all talked about it. And most of us wanted to be cremated. I don't want a big fancy funeral. I don't want all these different things. And one of my brothers told me, I'm not going to a funeral. What? So if anything happened to our parents, don't expect me there. So even though we had all these documents in place and everyone knew where our documents are going to be and what the plan was, we also had those very uncomfortable conversations. So if my parents were to pass away, and thankfully they're both alive, I know my brother's not showing up.
Okay,
so that keeps us from fighting or having ill will. But those documents are so important in discussing with your family. And if you have someone who's a guardian of your children, if you pass away, they need to know it. They don't want to one day get a phone call like, the will says you're going to be taking care of their 3 children.
Well, really? I didn't have a say in that. Okay. Last but not least, speaking of kids, we mentioned divorces. You don't divorce people. They're going to divorce themselves. You're there to help. But one of the saddest parts of the whole situation is custody with the kids. I've heard it a long time ago to where we have a choice whether to be husband and wife, but the kid doesn't have a choice to be a kid, So what do you do? There's got to be a whole different ball game when a couple comes to you to get a divorce and there's kids involved.
Absolutely. I want the clients that are going to be reasonable, understand that, let's say you're divorcing your children at 5. Let's make a plan as best as we can until they're 18 so you don't have to litigate for the next few years. I have had clients who come to me and they made a custody agreement that was really only good for a year. I'm like, did they not think this child was going to go to school one day and not be in daycare? But it's very important to know, one, do not war. And some people war with Child Protective Services. Well, I'm mad at this parent, I'm going to call them. That usually backfires. One, Child Protective Services does not like to be in custody issues. And guess what? Now they're going to review your home as well. And then the children. So I have resources about family counseling, play therapy, and I give my clients resources to let them know. We even have pamphlets and things that the Texas Bar gives us to help them understand that, yeah, you're going through a divorce, but your children are also going through a very tough situation. So not only do I give them the legal system, which is already a lot of law on this, I also help them guide them with resources. So this will be a less traumatic experience.
Very nice. Basically, whether it's a will or a custody situation, just be ready. Just be prepared. Bring in a pro like yourself. Okay, last but certainly not least, of everything we talked about, all the different areas of law you practice, just like the rest of us, regardless of what we do, our lives have been impacted severely over the last year and a half or so through the pandemic. What has that done to practicing law?
Well, one is sent some people to retirement, but I didn't retire. For about a year, we were doing solely Zoom hearings. And it was a little overwhelming at first because it was technology and you had exhibits online. And I was in a home office for a while before I got my amazing office here at Venture X. And so I had to do a Zoom hearing in my office at home. And so now we do a hybrid. Some courts have gone back to in person 100%. Some people have done, you can pick which one. So even though it was overwhelming at first, it really became very wonderful. Yesterday I had a client was in, I think, Virginia on Zoom. So they did not have to fly in town because we opted to do a Zoom hearing. So with the Zoom or the different technologies, it usually saves people money. It allows you to get expert witnesses from other states, I've had people in other countries be able to Zoom in. So it was a little overwhelming, but I think it allowed us to understand that technology can be our friends. And if we want to keep each other safe, then technology can be included.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said that. And it's a perfect segue too, because now I've got to talk to you about Venture X. I'm just really curious.
Okay.
I'm infatuated with this place. I'm not a member yet, but you are, and you have been. How did you decide that this is the place for me?
Well, last year during the pandemic, I was still in a home office and I needed another location in Denton County. And I just went online, I found it. I said, oh, it's a beautiful picture. I didn't even see it at first. And I just paid for it and I need to pick up some mail. I came in and they had this great person working in the front named Dane. And I had on, y'all, I'm a lawyer, but I had on a sweatsuit and I was not looking like a lawyer that day. He was like, would you like to tour our facility? I'm like, I'm not doing anything else but picking up mail. The facility was amazing. The lighting, the colors. I know a lot of people are like, why does that make a difference? I have clients coming here talking about wills. I have clients come talking about divorces. So having a bright open space was really, really great. And I came in with just one small office and now I have 2 larger offices.
Is that right?
So they accommodated my staff as we've grown. And then they have other offices like, Stacy, we have this one waiting for you when you grow even more. So the staff here has been amazing. Like I said, I really appreciate Dane just having a foresight of like, she's picking up mail, but maybe she wants to get an office space. So he knew it before I did. And I will honestly say this has probably been the best adventure at picking an office space. And even the conference rooms, I've had a lot of meetings here. It's very secured. And as a lawyer, we had to have security. You know, we have security downstairs and even the building locking itself and having different access. So I'm here and I don't hope to go anywhere for a good while. So.
Well, if you go anywhere, it might be 10 feet to the left because you need more space. Is that
exactly.
fair enough? And what a great facility. If you still need to do the Zoom thing, it's a little more professional here with everything.
It is. Actually is a lot better than my home office where the conference rooms actually allow you to project it and my clients, especially clients that are a little older and not as well with technology, they'll come in even if we're doing Zoom and it'll be just us two and we have like the televisions and it'll project a screen. It'll make it larger than just a little laptop screen or a monitor. So the technology here allows me to be great with Zooms. There are like microphones and different things like that. So I get really, really fancy here, and it just makes me look really great to my clients.
Well, good for you. Well, I think you look great on the podcast today. I appreciate you being here. It's just a fabulous story, and it all started back in Fort Worth, Texas in the 4th grade, and look at you now, just doing great things for great people. And again, I applaud you for that relatability factor that you bring to the table for such serious issues that you personally have been through yourself. And so you get it. And I know that means the world to your clients and your prospective clients too. Thanks, Stace. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, folks, as always, we appreciate you joining us here on the Venture Xperience podcast. Thank you so much for that. We look forward to catching you next time. Take care.
Venture X is a locally owned and globally connected portfolio of co-working spaces, providing businesses with on-demand office space and services to successfully run their company. When you need space for your next business, X marks the spot.